I almost gave up on my academic layout planner because I found something I needed in it that isn't here. But then I figured out a solution. And because I have this blank week that I ended up not using in January, I want to use this to kind of create a mock spread to show you how I fixed the problem. But first, if you're new here, hey, my name is Lauren, and on my channel, I share tools and tips to help you on your self-care journey. Planning is one of those things that I need to do to keep my head on straight and make sure that things get done that need to get done, but more so that my mind can be relaxed enough to trust that I have a place to write things down so that I don't have to remember. For my main planning, this is an Erin Condren Academic Planner. It's designed for students, but I picked it up to use for this year because I felt like I could use it as a mom who has like multiple different things, and there's a lot of space on here. But now that I've been using this for a couple weeks, I found there isn't a space for me to do like a weekly list. And I just came up with the solution. I can't show you the current week because I always like to make sure I only show you things from the past. I have this thing about privacy and I don't want people knowing where I'm supposed to be going. So you're not going to see my calendar views because my like monthly view I actually use for like the overall plan for the month. And then for the week, I will look at the month, set this up, and then I only look at this for the week. And if I really need to, I will use my traveler's notebook for like a daily list to do like a rapid log if there's like a lot of things going on one day and I just need to focus on just like one column of things to do. That's what I will do instead. But let me show you a little bit about how I used this when I first started and then how I kind of shifted a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and map out the week. So this is how I started. I thought I was going to use these spaces here to call out like what this section is going to be for. And at first I was like, okay, because this is how I initially thought that I would use it. And here's another week. And then another week. I'm covering up something right there. So I did it for like 3 weeks like that. And then I hit this week where I absolutely didn't even use this. And then I was like, wait a minute. I think I might need to go to this kind of a thing instead. So I used to be in a plum paper vertical priorities, and that was kind of similar in structure as far as like vertical columns. And I remember the way I used to have that set up was kind of like, here's a section at the top, and then here's like, a little section for what's happening for today, and then like a to-do section. That's how I broke that down. I have videos on my channel still from planning in that planner if you're interested in seeing that. But I thought, okay, maybe this will work. And this to actually ended up looking way busier. I think it's just the color of this highlighter that I picked. And then also the additive, like the habits, which you can see I never even came back in here to fill out. And this looked a lot more calm because this is like a different color. But again, with the habits, like not filling it in, I know I've been doing a lot better about my PM vitamins. I had for a long time stopped doing my magnesium supplement at the end of the day, in addition to my one that I take in the morning. So I've been doing really good about that, but I have not been doing good about checking it off in here. And mostly because I've been hardly referencing this. And then I tried to see if, well, maybe I realized I had these Planner Kate stickers that I had made a while ago. I thought, well, maybe I can just use it and not have to write it in every section. And I kind of didn't like this. partially because I have a hard time seeing like words that are written in white with like a color background. I really need a dark word. I keep wanting to say font, but that's not what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say. I need it to be in a color. I need it to be a dark shade, not white. Or there needs to be more contrast. Maybe this would stand out to me and I could read this better if the background was a darker color. But anyway, so you can see here, I even had noted on this day that I tested out using my Hemlock and Oak horizontal, which I used that towards the second half of the year, in the second half of last year, 2025, for journaling daily. And I had a lot of extra pages in there because I didn't use that in the beginning of the year. So I tested out using that layout to map out my week. And I was like, maybe I need to go to a different planner. I almost did. I cannot show you the next week because that will be the week that we're in right now. So let me go to this blank page, this blank week, and map this out, a mock spread for you. I actually found some sticky notes that I forgot I had that this could actually work also, but the pen that I like to use to write on these, I don't have with me. Let me go grab that real quick. Okay. It has been a while since I've done some sort of like a plan with me on camera type situation. So I've got a mic in my face and I'm going to have to like move. Usually I will put my face a little bit closer to what I'm doing, but I'm going to have to figure this out. So all I have is like a pen, which is a Sarasa Mark-On in the 0.5. This works really nicely on the Erin Condren paper, and it's in a different body than like what you would get if you buy the Sarasa Mark-On. This body is like one of those like air grip ones that when it ran out, I just refilled it. Like that's my favorite refill. And the thing about the Sarasa Mark-On refills is you can stick them in any pen that is like a Sarasa body, I'm pretty sure, and it'll work. So most of my pens, if it's like a Sarasa body, the refill in it is going to be like a Mark-On because that's the Sarasa that I enjoy the most. So this is going to be just pen. I have a dot marker. This is a Zig dot marker. It doesn't matter what dot marker you use. And this is just, there goes my pen. This is a Erin Condren highlighter, like a dual tip. I don't know if they have these on the site anymore. I want to say this is from like last year's launch or the year before. It has like a highlighter tip on one side and then a pointed writing or a bullet medium-sized tip on the other. This is in a very light, like green shade. So I'm going to use that one. And then this one I went to go grab to write on the sticky note. This is I don't know what you'd call this. It's just like almost like a felt tip, black on this side. And this is just a checkbox. I'm not going to use this side, but it's like a glitter checkbox. This comes in a whole set. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. I honestly bought them just because of this tip, because I really like this tip. And it writes really nicely on the Erin Condren sticky note paper. And it works really nicely on the Erin Condren petite journals, like the paper on that or the paper in their softbound planners. That's a little bit of a different paper feel than this that's in their actual like coiled notebooks and planners. And that writes really nicely on those. This works really nicely on here, but I prefer writing on this with the Sarasa instead. So I just like the way my handwriting looks with this on like this paper. For some reason, my handwriting doesn't look as well on this one. Am I the only one who picks a pen based on how my handwriting is going to look on that paper? I know I'm not, because I've seen videos where other people say the same thing. But anyway, okay, so let me do this. Let's see if I can real time it and not really talk too much and just lay it out so we can see exactly how long it'll take to set this up. Because I know a lot of times people are like, setting it up is going to take too long, but let's see. I'm gonna roll my sleeves up, guys. This is serious. Okay. I've done this enough times now that I should know what I'm doing. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but each of these sections, this line's a little bit darker. So I'm kind of writing on that line. The pen skipped a little bit right here. I feel like my whole table is shaking. I can see the mic shaking. That was not my straightest line ever. I usually do really good with freehanding lines, but I'm sitting a lot further back than normal. Okay, where were we at on time? I didn't even see what the time stamp was when we started. I'll see if I pop it up at the end when I'm done with this. Almost done. Okay, that was it. It is set up. In case anybody is curious about what it looks like on the other side, so nothing bled through. You can sort of see the ghosting a little bit of that line, but that's not going to matter because technically if I'm turning the page, that's the next week. So the only thing that would matter is turning the page here, which in this instance, you see how it's like really close to the coil. If this was on a week, it would be like right here. So I don't think that would bother me because if I did this exact thing, the previous, if I had did this on the previous week, well here, let's see. Let me do this. Let's pretend I had set it up like this the week before so we can see what they look like. The ghosting, and I'm actually like pushing kind of a little bit because this particular dot marker set is a really light shade, so that's not too bad. And you see here I kind of pushed a little harder when I was on this part, so you can see it through a little bit more, or at least I can. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but that's not too bad at all. So this is kind of my solution, and let me also show you, like, if you have these, this had came with a bundle. I think this past winter, it was like a journal A5 notebook. It had like a snowflake cover, or there was the other option. There was another option from Erin Condren. And these were a part of the sticky notes. But I think this also had came with another bundle previously, maybe the year before. But this, instead of doing this part right here, I could have done this instead. So let's see. Oops, I just keep dropping things today. I could have done this instead to kind of create a week list right here and written some things here. So let's see some examples of something that I would write on a week list, but not actually put it on a day. So, and then obviously here I could just, whatever, it's open space. So the problem that I was having with this layout is there's no weekly spot. So my idea was that I'm not really utilizing this space down here anyway. And this number of lines is actually probably long enough. If that ends up, overfilling, then I've got more space here that I can work with. And then another thing that I was missing was like a little spot for like next week. That's something that I used to do in my other planner. And having like, as the week goes on, sometimes it's like, oh, something needs to happen, but it doesn't need to happen this week. It's something I need to do next week. And then I have a spot right here that I can use. Then I can go ahead and carry it over to next week. So even though this planner is technically supposed to be like, these columns are supposed to belong to these days, I just finagled it by drawing a line. If I wanted to get extra, I suppose I could put a strip of washi if you wanted to do that, if that helps you further separate it. Or another thing could be even just highlighting and drawing a line across the way I kind of like did this, but instead of writing anything under it, you can just draw a highlight all the way across. Maybe that helps your mind distinguish like this is a separate section entirely. So having a list of things or using like a sticky note like this, and that being like a solution to having someplace to jot down those like weekly things that I don't need to put on a day. Because a lot of the times I don't want to dedicate like, or say, I want to do this thing on this day. It's more like if I have the energy, that's usually kind of how I go by doing things. I try not to sit there and be structured with my day and say, well, this is what I planned on doing today. But then if I wake up that day and for some reason I don't have the energy, my brain doesn't work, whatever the case may be, I'm not going to force myself to do it unless it's something that actually absolutely must happen. Like the kids obviously have to get to school. The kids have to get fed. As long as those things are happening, like that's pretty much all that matters. But you saw my other spreads, so you know kind of how I'm using this. Sometimes I like doing just a dot and then either like Xing it out when I'm completed it, the task. Let's say this was that's probably not something I would have put on an actual day, but sometimes I'll use this instead. So I've been trying using X's, but I do prefer using check marks. So I think I'm going away with the X's. A lot of times what I used to do when I would do just check marks all the time, it feels more positive to me in my mind. Let me know if you feel the same too. For some reason, it feels more positive to me to check something off with a check mark than it is to use a X. the X makes me for some reason feel like I didn't do it. Probably because for the longest, that's what I used to indicate like something I changed my mind I don't want to do. So I think I'm going back to just using check marks instead. And other times I will use, I'll draw in a box. That's not my best. I'll draw like a square and kind of do that. I don't know why I won't just do like a box. That's probably enough, but I like the 3D effect of doing that. I don't know, I'm weird. With the timed appointments, sometimes I will use a highlighter. So let's say something's happening, practice, or let's say I have a massage appointment. Oh, that's like way too much. Okay. I will highlight this part to kind of call attention to those things. I haven't been doing that. Sometimes I'll do this instead. Sometimes I'll go like this and do like a similar situation like that to kind of call attention to that thing. But that's just, I don't know. It just depends on how I'm feeling. And then this space up here on the top, I've been using for things like if there's no school, I'll write it up here at the top. If there's a birthday, I'll write like the name of the person, that sort of thing. That's what like that space in the top is for. Sometimes I keep track of like what days that I have the kids ride the bus in the morning instead of me taking them. I initially thought that me listing out, making like a list here, because there's space here and it's not truly like one whole area, that it was going to feel like it was going to look weird. I don't know. I thought it was going to feel weird, but it doesn't. Let me list out like a bunch of tasks here so you can see what it looks like filled in with some tasks. So, okay. So now you can see what I mean about like what it looks like having a list of things that are for the week. Then like when I'm done, because I've already made like a dedicated list space, I can just check off the items as I do them. And then if for some reason I didn't do the rest of these things this week, I can draw an arrow when the week gets to like the end of the week. And especially if I decided like I'm going to move it to next week. And then when I'm filling out the next week, I can come here and say, let me move some of the stuff over. This is different though than my Moxie Life weekly actions. I have another notebook that I use for listing that out. Let me go grab that so I can show you. Okay, so this is the setup pages that I had already for March that I set up in here. This is just a lined, what is it called? A priorities and notes layout. I hope they still have this. I think they do. And I have my categories broken down into 6. I merged some of the categories. So I'd merged personal and the other one was personal growth and spirituality. So I merged those into one, and I merged the fun and recreation category with the like friends and family one into one, because a lot of times those overlap and they are kind of one and the same. So I merged that so that I can have the 6 boxes. And so this is where I will list out the goals for March, and then this is where I'm going to list out my reflections. And then here, this is where I'm talking about the weekly actions. So this is where I sit down when I also do my plan for the week and list out what do I need to do in these categories that are related to these goals over here. And then depending on what, these goals are, I will go ahead and add these things to like either the weekly to-do list to make sure it gets done, or dedicate it to a day. Like certain things would have to happen on certain days. Anything finance related will likely happen on a payday. So whatever the payday is, which My husband's paydays are Thursdays. Usually the check is there on Wednesdays in the bank. So either of these days, I'll probably write something that says like pay bills or anything other, like if I have to transfer savings, anything like that, it'll probably happen on these days. And that's kind of how I try and make sure that I'm completing these things, but I'm putting them in here. So what's been happening though is because I don't really I haven't had a space to like list it, and I don't like using the snap-in dashboard. I don't think I can show it to you. Oh, I can, because it's on a blank page that I haven't filled out my goals in here yet. Like a dashboard like this would ideally kind of work. See how it has a whole list space for doing something like this, but it's a little bit more complicated because I need to use a different pen to write on that. And then I would have to wipe it away clean every single week. And that's just too much work. It's too much friction to have to like do that. And yeah, it's easier for me to just use normal pen and paper and write directly on the paper. So because I didn't have that, I wasn't really putting my weekly actions to here. And then also I was utilizing this to kind of write down certain things that were like things that needed to happen this week, but they weren't really necessarily things that were related to my goals, if that made sense. And then the only way for me to know if did I do what I was supposed to do this week is for me to reference this constantly. And the idea is that I shouldn't have to reference this all the time. I should be able to like figure out what those are going to be all at once, and then add them into here somewhere, most likely in a lists format like this. And then as the week goes on, if just random things happen, because life happens and random things need to get added, but they aren't necessarily related to goals, I needed a spot to put them. So that's something I think I completely overlooked, although I did think like, oh, I can just use the dashboard, even though like the snap-in dashboard, even though I've known in the past that that's something that I've never liked doing. Even the idea of putting a sticky note on that and then writing on that, no, it just did not, no. Absolutely not. So for now, I feel a lot more peace. I will not continue looking at other things to see if there's something else that I can get instead. I'm going to keep on doing this because one of the problems that I have with a lot of other types of planners when deciding is I like having a bigger calendar, like the size that this calendar is in the Erin Condren. And there aren't very many other brands that have a calendar that's this big that also has like a week version that I can use. And because I like having the month and the week like in the exact same planner. And the other thing too is it needs to be a Sunday start on here, and then the week needs to be a Monday. So unless I'm going to go through the trouble of redating all those calendars, it needs to be a Sunday start on that. My brain, for some reason, I look at an actual calendar, it has to be like that. So the perfect planner for what I want doesn't exist, but also my needs change a little bit as time goes on. So I don't think there'll ever be a perfect planner that's going to fit for me for now and the rest of forever anyway. So I'm just going to have to make do with whatever the heck I have and hopefully be able to finish this one out and not half use it, because I'm trying to be more mindful of not just like how much money it costs to move to a different planner, but how much time it takes to move to another planner and what ends up happening with this one, like ends up being waste. I hope that maybe this conversation helped you to kind of talk yourself out of getting another planner and maybe gave you some ideas on how you can get over any kind of hurdle, especially if you're having like a similar one that I am with regard to like there wasn't a space in here for a weekly list and now I kind of made one, either like that or with using something similar to this. I'm sure somebody sells some kind of sticky note that you can get that has like a list that would work great. I'm sure Erin Condren has some. I know they have like a booklet that you can buy. It's not going to look exactly like this, but they have like a booklet. I think that's the sticky notes are maybe like this big. And definitely one of those sticky notes in that set is something that's like a checklist like this. The other ones in there will probably be like a blank one, maybe a graph grid one, maybe just a lined one. I don't know. There's like multiple different ones. Look at what you have. I'm sure I had this and I forgot about it. It's literally sitting on my counter, kind of in like one of those compartments next to the pens, but it was like hiding behind something. And the reason I had that there in the first place was to remind me that I have this, because if I don't see my things, I don't use it. Use what you have, and you don't have to be fancy about it. Again, it didn't take very long for me to lay this out in a way that worked for my brain. And yeah, I just saved myself probably like $70 not getting another planner. If this was helpful, give it a thumbs up so that YouTube can show it to other people. Leave me a comment. Let me know if there was something in here that you took away that was helpful, that actually helps me to know that there are something specific that I might have said. If you can call those things out to me in the comments, that means a lot to know that, one, you're paying attention to the video, but two, seriously, it helps me to know that what I am saying matters to you, and it gives me like the motivation to continue to post here on YouTube. So leave a comment if you can. And if you're not subscribed and this was the first video you've ever seen from me, welcome. I hope you go to some of my other videos and check those out. I'll leave something here in an end card for you to see and a thing for you to hit that subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.